There is another covenant that presented itself to me today that has something dealing with 7 years associated with it. And because it has to do with the International Criminal Court, the Rome Statute Covenant is what the International Criminal Court was founded under. So it's interesting that this article written by Ariel Kohana was published on January 12th of 2020, and it says that the cabinet's concerned about secret ICC arrest warrants against Israeli officials. Ministers believe International Criminal Court will launch an investigation against Israel within 90 days. If so, high-ranking Israeli officials and IDF officers may be arrested upon traveling abroad and extradited to The Hague. Let me just share this article with you. Members of the Diplomatic Security Cabinet are said to be profoundly concerned that the International Criminal Court, based on the Roman Statute Covenant, will launch a war crimes investigation against Israel within 90 days and may issue secret arrest warrants for Israeli officials it considers suspects. Last month, the ICC chief prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda, announced her office has concluded with determination that all the statutory criteria under the Rome Statute for the opening of an investigation have been met. In brief, she said, I am satisfied that war crimes have been or are being committed in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. Well, those are all the territories that the Palestinian Authority is supposed to take control over, right? At least with Trump's peace deal of the century. So it goes on to say, as Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute that lends the ICC its power, Jerusalem claims Bensouda has no jurisdiction over the matter. The Palestinian Authority joined the Rome Statute in 2015, and that's the Rome Statute Covenant. Most of the prominent actors in the international arena are signatories to the Rome Statute, including all Western European countries, Canada, Australia, all Latin American countries, and most African countries. The United States is not a party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Bensouda said it would ask The Hague for an opinion on whether its scope of jurisdiction on the matter would not affect Israel's determination to confront terrorists wherever they may be. A potential investigation by the ICC will focus on Israel's military operations in the Gaza Strip and its settlement enterprise in Judea and Samaria. Now, as you know, in my last 2 videos, I talked about that in Matthew 24, it talks about the people in Judea having to flee to the mountains and not return into their homes to get their things out, but to flee for their lives. Well, this could possibly be one of the potential covenants that we're looking at, and I'll show you why in a minute. Legal experts reportedly told the cabinet that a stronger case could be made in The Hague over settlement construction, meaning that every Israeli official party to promoting construction in Judea and Samaria and East Jerusalem could potentially face the International Criminal Court. IDF personnel who participated in military campaigns in the Gaza Strip, including in quelling Hamas riots on the Israel-Gaza border, could also face the ICC. The article goes on to say that Benjamin Netanyahu has already reached out to Israel's allies, asking him to help defend the Jewish state against the potential war crimes probe. The U.S., Australia, Hungary have already expressed opposition to the ICC involving itself in a case about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Now, I want to stop reading that for a minute because I want to get to the point of why I think this has a potential of being a 7-year covenant with Israel at some point. Now, I have another article here published by Jonathan Ofer on January 10th of 2020, and it says Yoshi Balin advises Israel on how to dodge the ICC problem. Israel is facing a new kind of problem since the announcement of the International Criminal Court that it would fully investigate war crimes committed on occupied Palestinian territory. In other words, Judea and Samaria, which they call the West Bank, and Gaza, pending a pre-trial chamber decision concerning the territory. Some, like the centrist Netanyahu rival Benny Gantz, are rejecting the court's validity in this case outright. Gantz called it a political decision, not a legal one, adding that the Israeli army is one of the most moral militaries in the world, and that the Israeli army and state of Israel do not commit war crimes. You've got all of this stuff happening in Africa, and they're not going after the people that committed those war crimes. I'm going to skip down in the article. It says, Balin is very serious about the ICC issue being a problem. And here's the problem. The ICC accepted the Palestinians as members following the UN's 2012 recognition of Palestine as a non-member observer state, paving the way for the Palestinian Authority to seek prosecution of Israelis for war crimes stemming from the transfer of Israeli citizens to settlements in the occupied territories in violation of international law. If the court authorizes Ben Suda's requests for such prosecution, many Israelis could be arrested once they leave Israel and taken to the ICC in The Hague. And they're arguing that Palestine is not a state and thus not authorized to make such demands of the ICC. Now, he says Israel can solve the problem with relative ease. It only needs to go back almost 20 years and ratify the Rome Statute Covenant. Any state that ratifies the treaty is authorized to receive a 7-year deferral of action on any part of the document that it finds particularly troubling. If Israel chooses to cite the settlement issue, the ICC will not be authorized to arrest any Israeli on that count until 2028. So there is a 7-year deferral of action, which would be people having to flee what they consider the settlements in Judea and Samaria. Goes on to say, in other words, Balin is suggesting to buy some time by ratifying the Rome Statute Covenant rather than fighting the ICC from outside, as it were. This could buy it 8 years more, since the court would have to consider Israel's contesting of the settlement enterprise as criminal. Balin is clear that this is the main and least controversial issue that the court will be addressing. He goes on to say, Balin's supposed defense of his strategy is his suggestion that it would buy time for Israel to make a supreme effort to reach agreement with the Palestinians, which is what they're trying to do now with the peace deal of the century that was just unveiled yesterday. And that since such an agreement would address the settlement issue, this issue will be removed from the international agenda in general and from that of the ICC. But what pushes Israel to make this supreme effort? And notice how the agreement with the Palestinians is vague. Now, Balin wrote, he was the architect of the Oslo Accords. Then it's talking if a new government forms. Israel's forever elections have shown clearly that if a right-wing government is not able to form, Israel's only actual government option is a national unity government of Likud and blue and white, with people like Gantz at the supposed left flank. When Netanyahu recently announced plans to annex the West Bank, Gantz's party said that they stole the idea from them. Balin is living in Never Never Land. Those who are a bit more honest, like former Vice Premier and Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon, say it like this. There are pressures, peace now from within and other elements from without. So you have to maneuver. What we have to do is maneuver with the American administration and the European establishment, which are nourished by Israeli elements and which create the illusion that an agreement can be reached. I say that time works for those who make use of it. The founders of Zionism knew, and we in the government knew, how to make use of time. Ya'alon, who used to be in the Likud but moved left to Gantz's blue and white, said this in 2011 in response to the question, why all these games of make-believe negotiations? Could this be the covenant with many that's signed for 7 years? This is another option that's out there, and how it corresponds with them trying to fight this in Israel. And meanwhile, we have the peace deal of the century unveiled yesterday, and it just started to snow. Snowflakes are coming down around me. Okay. So this is another option that I'm presenting. And it all has to do with the area of Judea and Samaria, which we know is the Matthew 24 prophecy, that they will have to flee in order to be protected. It's really strange, but as I finished reading that, the temperature just dropped. I mean, you could feel it. And just as the snowflakes started coming down, of course, I didn't even know it was supposed to snow. Anyway, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I didn't have any idea that that was called the Rome Statute Covenant, and that if it's ratified, they would have 7 years before they could do anything to the people. Very interesting. So I just thought I'd share this new find and share a little bit of these articles. I didn't read the whole thing because it's very lengthy. Anyway, we know that the prophecy is going to be fulfilled, and the Lord is coming. Now the snow is picking up. Really picking up. Wow. Just landed on me. Clearly, this is going to be part of the end time of the 7-year tribulation. It's very clear what's setting up. Keep looking up, for your redemption draws nigh.